you have to understand your target audience, all right? If you don't understand who you're even selling to, I would definitely not be running ads because you're not gonna be able to create the messaging that you should. You're not gonna be able to create the content that you should either. How we doing today? Good? All right, we're gonna talk about the fun stuff, man. We're gonna talk about Facebook ads, email, SMS. So we're really just gonna do an overview of why Facebook ads are important, when you should run Facebook ads, how much you should spend. We're gonna talk a little bit about ad setup and launch, get into some metrics and tracking, and then the importance of email and SMS. All right, but before we get into that, we're just gonna talk a little bit about who I am. If y'all don't know me, my name is Brianna. I run Facebook ads. I quit my 6-figure software job to, help brands scale and just become a full-time entrepreneur. I, got an extensive background in e-commerce, got into drop shipping, did pretty good with that, and then started my clothing brand, met Marlon and Nick, and they was able to, just help me scale. And it was really just a blessing to be able to meet them. And really, they seen that I could also run ads. So, I ended up paying them to get into the program. And now, they pay me to run their ads. So just pretty cool how that happened. So we're just going to talk a little bit about why Facebook ads are important. So who in here runs ads or have ran ads in the past? Okay. And why did you choose to run ads? More eyes, right? Because you run a kiosk, but you can't be in multiple places at once, right? Right. So the reason why Facebook ads are important, it allows you to reach a larger audience, reach a mass amount of people. You have access to millions of active users worldwide. I mean, Facebook has 1 billion users on their platform. There's scalable growth in that as well. You have the ability to turn $1 into $3 or $1 into $5, depending on your ROAS. And then it also allows for target marketing. So you can reach your ideal customers just through your creatives and your messaging. So that's why I talk a lot about just making sure you understand who your avatar is. And, for example, I had a nature brand. So I know that I need to be reaching people who like nature. So I would, create content that has people out in nature, nature designs. I could target in my ad copy nature lovers and stuff like that, actually call out who my audience is. So that'll allow you to, just target who your audience is. And then next is consistency. So it allows consistency and to build predictability. So with organic, it's a little unpredictable because it's just based off how good that piece of content is. And if you're not good with content, a lot of times it's going to be hard to predict if you'll get sales or not. So with Facebook ads, you can predict, how much you can make based on how much you spend. And then it just makes it a lot easier without having to rely just on organic methods. And then the last one is data-driven decisions. So you can use the metrics to really just refine your strategies and boost your return on investment. All right, so this next slide is just going to be how everything works together. So customer acquisition is just super important, as well as customer retention. Those are going to be the 2 most important things. So I use Facebook ads a lot for just customer acquisition. It really allows you to just, bring in customers every single day. And how this works together, you want to make sure you have an optimized backend. So, your Shopify website, you want to have your email, SMS flows using Klaviyo and PostScript. And then you want to have any necessary apps that allow you to just increase your overall conversion rate. And then the next part is just going to be driving traffic. So, this is going to be organic methods, paid methods through Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Google, and all those things. And next is going to just be conversions. So this is where you can run ads. You can do, organic methods with drops using your email SMS list. And with ads, that first phase is really just going to be doing a lot of creative testing, which means I'm testing different pieces of content to see which works. And then that phase 2 is going to be really analyzing and scaling, and then starting to retarget using lookalikes and custom audiences. And then last is scaling and optimizing. So this is where, you want to make sure the customer experience is good. You're using customer retention through email, SMS, and bringing those people back into, having to buy from you again. And really just, looking back at everything and just making sure, is there any parts of the business where I can, just make things better content, things like that. Now, when should I run ads? So my main thing is, if you don't have a winning product, I wouldn't really be spending too much money on ads. I would make sure you have a validated product that can bring you in consistent sales. So that could be testing at pop-ups in person, backpack method like Marlon talks about a lot, and kiosk is another good way to, find a validated product. And then you have a fully functional website, so make sure you have your Shopify store up. Make sure it's, optimized with everything that it needs. And then you have to understand your target audience, all right? If you don't understand who you're even selling to, I would definitely not be running ads, because you're not going to be able to create the messaging that you should. You're not going to be able to create the content that you should either. And then lastly is you have a budget for testing. So if you don't have the budget, I wouldn't even waste my $5 or $10 on ads, because you're not going to see a lot of results. I definitely think, just being able to spend a little more to be able to test is important, because you allow Facebook to find who your audience is. And if you're only spending $5, $10 a day, it's going to be really hard to get some, success or some sales. So, just to get a little bit more into that, how much should you spend on ads? So during the testing phase, I would definitely recommend 20 to 50 a day to test the different audiences, different creatives. And then as you start to scale, you can start to increase the budget by 20%. Based on just performance. So if it's not working, I wouldn't be increasing the budget, right? But if you're getting a good return on your ad spend, then I would start to increase the budget by 20%. I wouldn't go crazy and be increasing it take a $20 ad to $100 the next day, because that can really impact the performance. All right, and then the golden rule is to spend 10 to 20% of your monthly revenue on ads for consistent growth. And then key tip, like I just said, only scale winning ads and track your ROAS and CPA. All right, and you can even break this down by how much do you want to make. So if you want to make $10,000 a month, then you could break it down and you know exactly how much you should really spend on ads. So if I wanted to make $10,000, I would divide it by, average ROAS could be a 2 or 3. And so you divide 10,000 divided by 3, that's $3,333 in ad spend a month. All right, you can even break that down by how much you need to spend a day. So 3,333 divided by 30 days is $111 daily ad spend. All right. So on average, if you want to make $10,000 a month, you need to spend anywhere from 100 to 125 a day. All right. So based on whatever you want to make, what's your goal? If you want to spend $5,000, or if you want to make $5,000, or you want to make, $8,000, you could just break it down. Super simple. All right, now let's get into what's possible. All right, so I know you guys seen me talk about this brand a lot. This brand is called Bodyworks. It's a women's activewear brand. So I started working with them in August of last year, and we hit our first $100,000 month in January of this year, and we spent $17,000 in ad spend. So that was one thing that we definitely broke down, like I just showed you, how much would we have to spend to make that $100,000, and just getting, prepared in that way. So making sure they had the right inventory, making sure, we spending a good amount of money every single day, and making sure the performance is good, it doesn't drop over time. So next I just have a couple screenshots. So this was January, $118,000. And then the next screenshot, you can see the ads manager, they made, they spent $17,000, made $82,000 from ads, and then they had a 4.2 ROAS. All right. Now, why were we successful with this? Why were we able to make $100,000 in a month with Facebook ads? Really just 3 keys to success with that. So one was having multiple winning products. So you can have a winning product or you can have multiple winning products. And they had, maybe 3 products that were, really just going crazy for them. So we had that. We had a good offer. So we ran this in January. So it was New Year's. We know a lot of people, like to get in the gym in the beginning of the year. And so we did, a New Year's offer pretty much that whole month with like just 25% off and just like promoting, good health and feeling good, looking good in the gym. And then the last one is great creatives. So this brand makes it super easy for me to run ads because they have a lot of content. They have a lot of UGC content. If you don't know what that is, that's user-generated content. It's basically, customers of yours just making content for you. All right. And so they have a lot of content. I never have to ask them for any content. They always just provide it. And it just makes it super easy to keep the ads fresh too. So getting into some of the issues that we faced, just overcoming some roadblocks. The main thing was like ad fatigue. So that's one thing that you'll notice a lot. Like you'll see an ad start to really go crazy, and then over time the performance will start to go down, right? And so how can we keep the ad performance up when we're starting to spend like $1,000 a day, sometimes $2,000 in a day? It's really hard to do with just like one creative, right? So you'll have to make sure like you're constantly testing new creatives every single week, maybe even every day. And then another way to really like mitigate, ad fatigue is just like using different people in the product. So different types of people. So it could be different races. This is a women's brand, so we had to use all women, right? But like some people who have unisex brands, like use a male and a female. So you can have a video with a male, you can have a video with a female, because one thing that does is it opens up different segments of your audience for you. All right. Another thing could be like different locations, right? So I know this is like a gym wear brand, but we don't just shoot all gym wear or them just in the gym. Sometimes it's like just them at home saying they're about to go to the gym, right? So it's a different location, just showing like the different, products that they want to wear to the gym. And then the last thing is just like different offers. So I know at WRLDINVSN, we run a lot of like different offers, buy one, get 2 free, things like that. And sometimes just like changing up the offer, even if it's the same product, can make the ad seem like more fresh. All right. So now we're going to get into how to set up your ads. And I'm not going to go into like the true setup from creating an ad and everything like that, because there's so many videos on how to do it. And honestly, it's not the most important thing. It really doesn't matter. Like if you have a good product and a good offer and good creatives, like it really don't matter how you run the ads, as long as, you're optimizing for purchases, obviously. But just make sure you're not using the boost post feature. You need to make sure you go and create a business manager and run the ads from there. So make sure you have a pixel. You go into the ads manager, create an ad account, and then you want to test like 3 to 6 creatives. All right. So when you first start out, try to test 3 to 6 different creatives under an ad set budget optimization campaign. And that's where the budget will just be at the ad set level. All right. And then whichever one gets the most purchases, you want to just scale from there, like we talked about, the 20%. All right. And so this next slide, just some few different ads that I've ran for some of the brands I work for. So WRLDINVSN, we had the buy one, get 2 free. This brand called Don Lucci, they just had simple, unique jacket. And then we had my boy Everett from Applying Pressure with the hockey jersey. And then we got Bodyworks. All right. So these are all, different creatives too, videos, carousels, images. And then you can see like the ad copy, the primary text that we use is just very simple. Like it's nothing crazy. It's not like a long, super like drawn out paragraph. It's just like just straight to the point, what we're selling, what the offer is. All right. Next is metrics and tracking. So this is important to understanding your numbers within the Ads Manager. So, your CTR, which is your click-through rate, just indicates how engaging your ad is. You have your CPC, which is your cost per link click, and it just measures the cost efficiency. So usually you want to have that under $1 because it indicates that, people are clicking through to your website less than $1. So that's, pretty good. And then conversion rate just tracks how many visitors take action. So usually 2% and up is pretty good. And then your ROAS, return on ad spend, and your CPA, which is your cost per acquisition. All right, so one of the most important metrics out of all of these is going to be the CPA and understanding, that cost per acquisition. So if you don't know how to do that, I talk about this all the time in the classes. I even have a calculator for it. And basically just goes through, you just subtract the average order value minus the product cost of goods, and that's going to be your break even. Now, if you want to see, you can go to the next slide. If you want to see what the profit target KPIs would be, like if you want to get 30% profit margin, then you basically just multiply that average order value times 0.3 for 30% and just subtract that from the break even. Cool. So I'll share that calculator with you guys later, but just making sure that you understand those target numbers that you're going for when you're running ads is super important. And then the last thing here is really just going to be customer retention. All right. So, it's one thing to, work on just customer acquisition and acquiring all these customers, building up your database. But what you do after that is super important as well. And so you want to make sure you nurture these customers. I've seen too many times, and I've even done this in the past, where I built the list up to 10,000 people, but I never really sent out any emails or texts. So it's these people forget about you. They, once you try to finally send out a campaign, it's just crickets, right? So you want to make sure you are nurturing those customers, just by sending out frequent emails, sending out frequent texts. And you can use Klaviyo, PostScript, like we always talk about. So some of the flows that are important to have is definitely welcome series, abandoned cart and checkout, browse abandonment, customer win back, customer thank you, right? All these flows are super important to make sure you're just hitting your customers. And then this last slide right here is just some examples of it where, super important to just talk a little bit about your brand through these flows. So it's not just building these flows out, right? It's really being strategic about it, showing testimonials, just so people can actually read this and see okay, they might see one email and not care about it, but then they see another one, they read it and they learn more about your brand and what you're doing. So that's just, pretty much all I got here. If you guys do, just want to work with us, me, Nick and Marlon, on, ads, email, SMS, and you're serious about just growing your brand, then we have a QR code on the next screen where you could just scan that and, apply to work with us.